Hello everybody. Now today's contemporary issue topic is what? It pertains to environment and that's called as carbon border adjustment mechanism. In short, it can be called as CBAM. CBAM means what? That's the initiative taken by the European Union. And under this initiative, European Union would be imposing tax on the imports which comes to Europe. And the importers would be asked to quantify the imports, that how much they are importing from other countries, particularly developing countries, and what is the embedded emission inside it. Let me make you understand it in a very simple way. Now suppose this is a product which I am making, and this product I am exporting it to European Union. Now European Union the importers in European Union would have to first of all quantify that what amount of import is coming to European Union and what is the embedded emission. Embedded emission means that if I made this product in India, in making of this product, what amount of greenhouse gases were emitted directly first, and second is what is the indirect emission, which is also called as the embedded emission. Embedded emission means that in making this product I took energy from power from thermal plant, and thermal plant is known for greenhouse gas emission on a large scale. Clear? So this would be called as what? It would be called as the indirect emission or embedded emission inside a product. So there would be direct emission of greenhouse gases while making of these products, and there would be indirect emission too, which is called as embedded emission. हिंदी में अगर कहते हैं तो अगर मान लो कि मैं किसी उत्पाद को बनाता हूं भारतवर्ष में और इसका निर्यात करता हूं यूरोपियन यूनियन में, तो यूरोपियन यूनियन क्या करेगा? उन आयातों पर एक टैक्स लगाएगा, खास करके उन आयातों पर जिसके बनाने में ग्रीन हाउस गैसेस का उत्सर्जन काफी हद तक हुआ है, और यह भी देखा है अप्रत्यक्ष रूप में इसमें कौन से उत्सर्जन मौजूद हैं, कितने उत्सर्जन मौजूद हैं. Now this would be called as carbon border adjustment mechanism. Clear? Now, when we talk about, if you have to write a full-fledged answer on carbon border adjustment mechanism in your mains examination, and let's look it in the perspective of mains examination, also in the perspective of your prelims examination. It's a type of what? It's nothing but a type of carbon tax. And when we say carbon tax, it is a fee or a tax imposed on release of greenhouse gases emissions to discourage these activities that contribute to climate change by making them more expensive in nature. So it means that if products are produced, and certainly in producing those products greenhouse gases emission takes place on a large scale, let's impose a tax on these products so that the price of these products enhances. And if the price of this product enhances, it would discourage the production of these products and incentivize on the other side clean energy initiative. Incentivize clean energy initiative. So what type of, if you look at the examples of carbon tax, initially carbon tax was imposed by Australia. It was imposed in the year 2012 and it was imposed under a broader initiative, and that initiative was called as carbon pricing mechanism, although it was repealed in 2014. So CBAM is nothing but a type of carbon tax only. The carbon border adjustment mechanism is nothing but a type of carbon tax only, and this would be imposed by European Union starting from January 1st, 2026, when the operational phase starts. See, there are two phases of the carbon border adjustment mechanism. First is the transitional phase, which already has started from the 1st October 2023, and this would be ending December 31st, 2025. This is a transitional phase in which the importers are asked that what is the embedded emission in your imports. Clear? How much energy intensive is the imports that you have taken from other countries. So first is the transitional phase, but there is no financial obligation. Financial obligation would be starting from January 1st, 2026 as far as European Union is concerned. तो इन पर टैक्स लगाया जाएगा कब से? इन पर टैक्स लगाया जाएगा 1 जनवरी 2026 से, जहां तक यूरोपियन यूनियन की बात है. बट यूके हैज इट्स ओन CBA, the cross border adjustment mechanism, which would be flagged off from starting from January 2027. So we have the CBAM of European Union, which is a threat to developing nations like India, as well as UK also, which is a threat to developing nation like India. Now let's talk about what is carbon border adjustment mechanism. First, it is a type of carbon tax. 1 point. Look at the pointers. Tariff on imports which are carbon intensive, means more and more energy is used for producing these products. So carbon intensive. Quantification of this imports also required, that in what quantity the import is being made to European Union, that you have to disclose. That's mandatory. And also, what is the embedded emission? Embedded emission means the indirect emission in making this product. Suppose this is a stylus. In producing this stylus, what happens? There would be direct emission, but there would be indirect emission also in the form of, suppose, power supply, because energy comes from the thermal plants. Clear? So that would be called as indirect emission, or this would be called as embedded emission. Now the purpose is what? Decarbonization burden to sift. So the rich countries of the European Union are sifting the decarbonization burden to developing nations. You pay for it. Clear? And the protection of domestic companies. So they want their domestic companies to be protected from undue competition, and this is in the guise of, in a hidden way, in the form of nothing but action taken for climate change. Clear? So the protection of domestic companies of EU would take place, and they would be burdening the companies of developing world. And this is nothing but relocation of carbon. The purpose is what? The purpose is that if the product is carbon intensive in nature, it has embedded emission to a greater extent, then it should be shifted from European Union to other countries. Other countries means what? Those countries where environmental laws are flexible. Those countries which are also called as countries of carbon leakage, which do not have strict environmental rules. So those countries would be called as countries of carbon leakage. So that is about carbon border adjustment mechanism, which you have to know. But as far as the backgrounder is concerned, it's the first time that carbon border adjustment mechanism has been started. No, it's a part of an initiative. देखो, पहले एक initiative यूरोप ने, इनफैक्ट 2 initiative यूरोप ने लाया है. One initiative is called as Fit for 55, and second initiative is called as European New Green Deal. Fit for 55 means that EU plans to reduce 55% of its carbon emissions by 2030. So that's called as Fit for 55. I've written EU plans to reduce carbon emissions by 55%, and European New Green Deal is what? European New Green Deal is nothing but a policy of Europe, which would be making it what? Making it carbon neutral. Carbon neutral. And neutral means what? Neutral means whatever emission is taking place from Europe would be neutralized. Means there would be carbon sinks for it. Now this would be making Europe carbon neutral by 2050. 2050. And certainly this is required by the Paris Declaration, that you have to neutralize your emissions by 2050. Europe would be the first continent to do so as far as the initiatives are concerned. So as backgrounder of the carbon border adjustment mechanism to initiative. One is Fit for 55 and second is European New Green Deal. So that can be written. Next, see. Now, as far as phases is concerned, already I have discussed now that EU CBM, there are two phases. One is October 1, 2023, already we are in that, to December 31st, 2025, and report on embedded emission. Certainly, this is required because the importers have to report to the government agencies. And second is a definitive phase. Now, definitive phase means what? The financial obligation would be starting. Imposition of tax would be starting. And imposition of tax is what? Imposition of tax is from, suppose if we consider iron steel, which is largely exported from India to Europe, the imposition of tax is from 19.2% to 52.7%. That's too much. Or suppose if we talk about UK CBM, UK's the carbon border adjustment mechanism starts from January 1st, 2027, but the tariffs import would be up to 35%. That's the problem that the countries, developing countries like India would be facing. So it means what? That the decarbonization burden from global north is being shifted to global south under the carbon border adjustment mechanism. So we talked about phases, we talked about what kind of tax it is. Now let's see another thing. What are the products covered? As far as EU is concerned, in the initial phase, which is commencing from January 1st, 2026, iron, steel, cement, electricity, hydrogen, fertilizers, aluminum, and similarly iron, steel, aluminum, fertilizers, hydrogen, and electricity would be covered by the UK carbon border adjustment mechanism. So these are the products which are more carbon intensive in nature. So these products would be covered up. Cement industry, 95% of the emission is nothing but CO2. That's why it is considered. Now, what is India's concern? Now, as far as India's concern is, the first concern is iron steel faces significant threat. And why significant threat? Because we are one of the biggest exporters of iron steel to European Union, and the carbon levies would be from 19.8% to 52.7%. Yes, that's too much. So it would become more and more expensive in EU. India's export worth 775 million to UK would be under threat. That is India's concern because of the carbon border adjustment mechanism. One concern is that CBAM not covered under India-UK FTA. See, recently we signed a free trade agreement with whom? UK. So India and UK signed a free trade agreement, and under this agreement, the cross-border adjustment mechanism has not been covered up. Clear? The cross-border adjustment, India tried to carve out nothing but a niche for the micro, small and medium enterprises, but that was also not allowed. Clear? That was also not allowed. But CBAM is also not WTO compliant. But if suppose we make a complaint to even WTO that our interest is being hampered, remember that the dispute settlement body of the WTO is not properly functioning. So that's India's concern. And one thing is that which we can consider, we can tax these products domestically. So let's go and tax these products domestically. But and if we tax these products domestically, certainly the tax by EU won't be there. And this would be helping our sustainability initiative. But we are not allowed to do this. Next concern is what? That's a violation of CBDR. CBDR means, if you look at the full form of CBDR, common but differentiated responsibility, it means that both developed and developing nation should take initiative for mitigating the impact of global warming and climate change. Both developed and developing nation should take the initiative of mitigating the impact of global warming and climate change. but the responsibility should be more on whom? Developed nation. Because they started industrialization. It was there where the industrialization started. There is a principle which is called as polluter pays principle. So this is a rich country which is responsible for global warming and climate change. So common but differentiated responsibility means that certainly both developed and developing nation would try to mitigate the impact of global warming and climate change, but responsibility should be more on developed nation. So it's a violation of CBDR, and it is nothing but shifting climate finance burdens to global south. Clear? Should be paid by the global north, but shifting towards global south. And EU is trying to occupy more and more of carbon space. Why we are saying so? Because if you look at the data of 2019, we can see that the per capita emission, per person emission, which is also called as carbon footprint, for EU it is 6.5 tons of CO2. Now this is 3 times higher than that of India. 3 times higher than that of India. Clear? All these are India's concern, and I have listed them in the form of points. Now, let's have a question at the end on the carbon border adjustment mechanism. Which one of the following statement related to carbon border adjustment mechanism is incorrect? It would be implemented by Europe as early as January 2026. That's the first statement. It would be implemented for 6 products initially. It requires importers of Europe to declare quantity of goods imported and embedded emission within it. And it would end the mechanism of collecting carbon tax presently enforced in EU. Which you think is the correct? D. Because it's not going to end the mechanism of carbon tax. It's a type of carbon tax only. It's a type of carbon tax only. Clear? Fine. So we are going to start in module on environment and disaster management. And if you wish to join, you can contact me on my number. It's 989-171-5769. We are going to start it shortly. So if you wish to join, because it's better to do preparation of your civil service examination or PCS examination in different modules. This would be cheaper, helpful, and also precise and significant. Thank you so much.